I'm interviewing Mr. Arthur Stahl. He's up here spending Christmas with Jimmy Stahl. Mr. Stahl is a very old pioneer of northern Montana and this section of British Columbia. Mr. Stahl, you were born in Michigan?
Yeah, 1876.
You came across the...
Great North. Just taking passengers and just...
To where Kalispell is now?
Yeah.
Was Kalispell much of a town then?
No. About 1,500, I guess.
Now, I believe you freighted, or along with your brothers.
Yeah.
Were your brothers older than you?
Yeah.
They come across from Michigan the same years?
Well, he come back 4 or 5 years afterwards. He come. He was a stone cutter by trade.
This freighting into Fort Steele, did they start loading their freight wagons at Kalispell?
Yeah, Kalispell, yeah.
Would that be in the winter or in the summer months?
In the winter.
Oh, in the winter.
Boats took everything up in the summer.
Oh, you were acquainted with the boats, too. Well, that's nice.
My brother worked on the boats there, the oldest brother.
Is that so?
Up there.
Well, then, as soon as the river froze over or the water got low, you fellas started freighting.
Yeah, 2 cents a pound.
2 cents a pound. Well, you had different places to stop on the way from Jennings to Fort Steele?
Well,
that stop
Kalispell.
Or from Kalispell, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Do you remember those stopping places?
Yeah, I know all of them who run them.
Well, would you mind telling it?
Yeah, first one there, that's where they put the railroad from clear through the back of Plains. At the end of the road there, it was Spring Prairie. So named Byron Hennings run the stopping place there. The next one there is, I don't know just how many miles, maybe about 15 more. Twin Bridges. There's fella Dusty Roads, that's all I know a name, run one there. The next one is halfway, a rock wreck, a stage stopped overnight there. Stage, when they run the stage there, 2 days from tobacco. There wasn't no Eureka, from there to Kalispell, $5 to ride the stage down there. The next one there's old Striker place there. And then next was Dr. Fortine. He had a homestead with some cattle at Ann Flats there. And the next place was clear. It would be at the end of the stage at the tobacco post office there. Then the long ways, the next place would be in the British Columbia line, is up the Bull River. Up near Bull River there, Sand Creek, Mott, you run the place there. He had a kind of saloon and stopping place. He got killed on Bull River there, at Mott.
Oh.
He was come from Columbia Falls up there, they did. Then the next place would be there from what was up way up there at Bartholomew there. He used to sell bootleg whiskey there and stopping place. Then at Fort Steele.
Do you remember very much about Fort Steele at that time? It was a fair-sized town at that time.
It was then, yeah. There was quite a boom in there then, too. There were an awful lot of hard rock prospectors in there, coming in there. I know one fellow come up there, he got $17,000 for a claim up there from Kalispell.
Well, did they have saloons and everything?
Oh, yeah, lots of saloons, yeah.
Dance halls, I suppose. And now, this freight, you fellas got so much a pound?
2 cents.
2 cents.
There's a carload of whiskey. I went up one trip there. There was Richard in Boston. There were two brothers, Richard, Fred Richards and Don Richards and Jim Boston. Had 3, and then their brother. Just all loaded of whiskey. 1,500 each one of whiskey. 4 loads of it.
Would that be good Scotch?
Yeah, we sampled it all. Raised a hoop and took a gallon out of them. And then poured the water on top of it. So they waited a minute. They didn't miss it.
That's what you might call watered whiskey.
Yeah, well, no, we didn't water the whiskey. I tell you good about the stage coming up there too. A preacher up there, and he had a quart of whiskey in there. And one night the stage driver got a hold of it. He drank about half of it and poured water in it. He says, "Is that too strong now for a preacher?"
You folks would, how much weight would you haul on those freight wagons?
1,500.
1,500.
1,500, 1,600 altogether. Mm-hmm. We only took 1,000 pounds of feed and 1,500 of freight.
Oh, I see. You required this feed to look after the horses.
Feed. Yeah.
How?
That way, then, if we good weather, we stopped out. We had the $100 bill only get through.
That was big money.
Yeah.
Was the stuff very expensive at that time compared with today?
No, the coffee, 15 cents a pound. Our buckle coffee, 50 cents for overalls. And $15 for them new carbine 30-30s, 32 specials.
Oh, they were just new out about that time, weren't they?
You and I come there, it was all 45, 70, 45, 90. Most of the guns they used then. We used to load our own carriages.
Mm-hmm. Well, then these 30-30 Winchesters, I suppose you wouldn't have too much trouble buying the ammunition for them.
No. Take up north, way north now, that they used to ration. They get once a year. Indians up there get a government treaty money. They issue the carriages to them.
Were you much acquainted with the Indians as they were at that time at Tobacco Plains? You mentioned coming in there with stock. Yeah. Did the Indians ever make much trouble?
No.
There was just that once that...
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us about that?
Well, there's one fellow supposed to kill 2 of them men. Paul.
Did they come down there and kill a lot of deer across the border at one time?
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us about that?
Well, a lot of them come down, clear down the Wolf Creek, the old Indian trail. Then lots of deer. There's places in there where they tan the hides for the hair, but they're that deep there. Then they dried the meat. Then they got up there the tobacco name of the town there. Then there was only this one saloon there, and a dance hall, and the schoolhouse, and a hotel, Judge Mills. That's all that was there.
Did they...
First school there was 1895. But, when the pigeons, the tough kids was late one day there, and it was raining to be hell. The teacher asked him why he's late. When he said, I took 2 steps ahead and slid back 3. All the time. He says, how'd you get here anyway? He said, Jesus Christ, he says, I turned around and walked backwards. I told that to the teacher.
That time that the Indians came down, some of the U.S. lawmen troops took their horses away. Would you mind telling us about that?
Well, there's only 4 white men there. I know there's Judge Mills and Bob Reed and Enos Campbell and I think his name was Beck there. Somewhere that rifle and shotgun, one fell out of the neck yoke. So the Indians went back up across the line and got all the carriages and all the Indians come down after the horses and in there, and the white men sat on the krill there, the rifles, shotguns, and they didn't take the horses out. One Indian threw his hat on the ground and jumped up and down and cried, "He'd be hell." And old Chief Paul come down and took the Indians home.
Did they would eventually get the horses back, I suppose.
I don't know how they ever done.
Mr. Stahl, you were acquainted with the boats on the Kootenay.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about them? Some of them were wrecked or something there.
Yeah, brother worked on them there. They'd stop pretty often. The cordwood, the fire was wood going up there. And there's a canyon down there. One of us on a rock in the canyon going through there. Another come down the wooden room. And they both wrecked in there.
Would there be any lives lost? Or
No.
They were able to
No, one
get
fellow
out.
took horseback. They must have had a telephone line from out of there then, because he come up to Fort Steele a horseback, and they phoned back somewhere for...
I believe you're right. There's not too many know about that, Mr. Stahl, but Dinty Moore, that living in Cranbrook now, that had the store at Fort Steele, he's got old records of some description that show that there was a telephone line or telegraph line or something.
Well, I know the fellow put one up to... I don't know how far it went. I know it went up clear to that Jeffrey and Corbett fight, Corbett and Sullivan. They put a telephone up in Kalispell up there, the tobacco plains there. They took it up. A fellow named McGovern put it up. Telephone, it just run on the trees mostly where they could. I don't know how far it come up any further or not.
Well, it commenced to look like that there was some kind of communication between Fort Steele and Jennings. So far, we haven't been able to pinpoint it, but it looks very much like it. And what you've just told us starts to bear it out.
Yeah.
Now, there was some trouble with the Indians in Montana, wasn't there? There was some shooting there, some young fellas or something. Would you mind telling us about that again?
I get that paper. My sister got it. That woman wrote that, but she wrote early history, lots of stuff. I got the picture of them in there, 4 of them, long hair on them there. They killed an awful lot of prospectors in there, and there's 4 of them sitting on a log cooking their dinner, and one of them kids lined them up and shot them all in one shot there. And they find this, what they call him, the stump, I don't know what the Indian name was in there. He told the Ramsel about him. There was a deputy marshal there. He got a lot of them Indians there. They got old Paul, I forget his name. He put him on a horse, bareback, and tied his feet underneath and run him ahead clear to Marsville. Curly Paul. The Indian names, I get the names out of that paper, and kids, they hung 3 of them. One got away, and a year afterwards they got the other one there.
They hung those right in Montana?
Yeah, DeMarsville.
DeMarsville. That was the Center for Law and Order, for that section of Montana.
Yeah. There's the head of navigation then.
Mr. Stahl, you would possibly be acquainted with some of the building or the incidents in connection with the building of the Great Northern.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us something about that?
Well, them towns now, there's nothing left there at all, and they took the stuff off, and that center branch went up the coal that was built before they built the Whitefish branch up. The old Hayden. I was in there the day that Frank slide, 1903. There, old Hayden. In there, nothing left there at all. That's where they unloaded the freight for down the other. Then old Harrisburg, the name of the town there. That's where Fort Steele is now. There's pretty old saloons in there, and and a couple of fellows killed in there. The fellow, the swamper in the saloon there, the bartender hit him over the head, the poker, and he went and died out in the road, and he had an inquest. He died of heart disease. Another fellow, prize fighter, he was a foreman over a bunch of Italians there. He was in the saloon in there, and one of the Italians didn't like him. He come up to him and says, I can kick you in the belly, I can lick you, he said, I can shoot you, and he pulled a gun and shot him right over the eye, and he lay down on the floor and kicked it 4 or 5 minutes and died, and he went out the back door, and nobody ever went after him at all. Another woman licked 7 men. She had a long stocking full of broken glass, hitting them with it.
Well, I guess she'd make the blood fly then.
Yeah.
Were you working on the railroad, or were you trapping?
No, trapping. I did work 3 days on the railroad. I and a brother were going, we was broke. We used to walk from Fort Steele 2 days to Kalispell down there, and we stopped down there Stillwater Lake there and worked with a bunch of Italians loading them dump cars, shoveling in there. We didn't have much money after collected either. They took the poll tax and the hospital tax out and one thing and another.
How was the trapping? How was the fur at that time? Was it fairly plenty?
You got lots of fur. It wasn't worth $5 per link. I used to get $5 for link hides or 15 alive. I used to take them out alive and ship them over to W. Sheard, Tacoma. I got a picture of a link there now, standing on a log, that little chain biting in his mouth. I'd chain him to it there.
How would you catch them alive? You just have an ordinary trap and they just sit there, I suppose. They don't tear themselves out like other animals.
No, a link won't. No, for there was between a link and a wildcat. There's nothing the same at all. A link will stay for days and days in the trap. Just catch a little fur on him. I went up and hit him over the head, and he jumped and run to beat hell there. Mm-hmm. But a wildcat will fight and pull a toggle in awful ways.
Did you have cabins on your trap line? Did you stay out? Yeah.
No, I had cabins.
Snowshoes, I suppose.
Well, I trapped in the mountains. I trapped all the heads of the Stillwater and the Whitefish and the Kennecack and the Whale Creek and Grave Creek and Weasel Creek and the Wigwam and Boundary Creek. All the heads of all them streams. The big basins in there where the martins stay. 10, 15 foot of snow in there. One winter in there is over 14 foot on the level in there. Snow all the time. I stood on a 2 foot of snowshoe, and I take 4 pegs to set a trap where I set them for martin. As high as I could reach there. They snowed up to that, and I stuck them up that much again, and they snowed that much over them again in there.
That was just about 14 feet on the ground.
Yeah. I come out in the middle of June, there's about 4 or 5 foot in there yet.
Well, this Stahl Creek in Montana.
That goes in the, the Blackfoot Trail goes up through Grave Creek and over through there. There's a ranger station there on Clarence Creek. There's a sign in there right on the trail there, the Stahl Peak and Stahl Creek there.
The peak is also called Stahl.
Yeah, that's the first lookout they built in the Kootenay Forest on that mountain at 7,400 foot elevation. There's some higher mountains in there.
How did they come to call that Stahl Creek?
Well, I trapped named after a mountain man.
I believe that's called after you yourself, Mr. Stahl. Am I right?
Yeah.
They've named that mountain in Montana and that creek in honor of you.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a thing.
I trapped in there for years and years. A mountain man, they named after mountain men. I know a lot of them old fellers.
And this Stahl Mountain, Mount Stahl?
Stahl Peak.
And Stahl Creek.
Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
I had a couple Libby papers there. They advertised the highest bidder for timber off in them creek, Stahl Creek, and the Stahl branch, Stahl Creek. The white pine on there they took off in there.
This Grave Creek that you speak of in Montana, we have one up here. Do you happen to know how they come to call that Grave Creek?
Yeah, there's high water there, and the fellas camped there. They go down. This fellow wasn't going to wait, and he went across and got drowned there. And Joe Eastland, he's an old timer in there. He died last winter. He was born in Montana. He was about 90. He died. They putting a bridge in there, and they stripped his bones out there. But he said he was an awful big man with the bones.
And they called it Grave Creek
for
him. I see.
What?
Mr. Stahl, I believe that you left Montana and come up on the Canadian side to Homestead.
Car a lot of horses out from Elko. Drove them up from Eureka. I homestead down in Neutral Hills. That's 200 miles southeast of Edmonton in there. They had a big prairie fire there in February. Then I stayed in there 1912. In 1915 I joined up in the Canadian, the First World War, the Canadians. It was an all-Indian battalion. It was all Indians. But the reinforcements the white men put in there. There was Tom Longboat, that marathon runner. You heard of him?
Yes.
He was in their battalion.
Was he? Did you ever talk to Tom Longboat yourself? Did you know him to see him?
Yeah, he was a battalion runner there. He was a tough Indian soldier. He was absent on leave most of the time and drunk.
He was what we used to call a battalion runner, messenger, carry messages. You were also acquainted with the Peace River country, I believe, weren't you? Did you homestead up there or trap?
Both. 1919, I run cattle in there too. I shipped a carload of cattle in there. I had to cut the road to get in there, and I went into my homestead in there for about a week. When I sold out in there, it was right on the main highway, the Fort St. John Peace River Highway, and 2 Greyhound buses twice a day by there when I sold out there.
You had a trap line away north of there?
Yeah, 600 miles northwest. Took me 30 days, pack horses in that first cabin, and 10 cabins and a tent I used to use, 200 mile long. I said, what? I laid over one day every 3 weeks, 400 mile, 500 mile every month for 5 months. I averaged $1.50 a mile all winter, 750 a month.
It would take quite a lot of money to finance that. How would you...
Well, I went to the banker in there and I borrowed $600 in strength of the fur in there, but I got 4 pack horses in the cabins and riders on bed and the dishes were sitting them in there and a 30-30 rifle, traps and everything. And it was 600 miles up there and there's only a road about 20 miles and then there's only a trail in there, up in there. And the fellow bought the line of the, just draw me a map and he wouldn't show me. I had to go find everything by that map. 2 days finding one cabin in there. In 7 days, there was an old Klondike trail went up there years ago. Went up through there to Great Slave Lake. And then they made a boat or something, went up into that lake and down the Mackenzie to the Red River there, then down up that and down over in there. Very few ever went through that way though. I had 7 days on that old trail and 3-day circle up in the Buffalo River. I went over 2 divides in there.
Would it take you very long to pay back the $600 that you borrowed from the bank?
I made $650 first 10 days coming back over the line. But that fellow that I bought out there, there's another two fellows there that worked together, but each one had a different line, 200 miles long. The third cabin on John the Swede line was my first cabin. I went northwest and he went north toward Keg River. Well, the fur goes up and down the rabbits in there. Every 7 years they get hundreds of thousands of rabbits in there. I tell you how thick they get in there. Last year in there, there's 10 cents for the hides. You get 100 a day. And one store keep about 47,000 hides. You know, there's other buyers besides, you imagine. There's lots of fur then. Then the rabbits die off. They don't raise no young for about 3 years. Till the rabbits come back, then lots of fur. Well, the last 3 years they got in there, they made $10,000 the two of them, and 12,000 and 14,000.
Just with these rabbits.
And then the rabbits die off. I bought the line.
What would the fur be?
Well, get awful nice fox up there. The last, when they made the 14,000 there, they got over 200 lynx, 274 fox, and 22 silvers. They sent them to London. And about 14 wolverine and an awful lot of beaver and coyote, some marten.
Would you be in the country where the caribou travel back and forth?
No.
They would be still north of you again.
Yes, land caribou, yeah. There wasn't many caribou where I was. There's some in there that depend on the feed, you see. They eat the jack pine and the kind of muskeg with the white moss or the humps. They eat that moss in there.
Oh, some people call that the caribou moss.
Yeah. Then they eat that moss off in trees too. Spruce, big white moss. Years ago in here, the Indians made bread out of that black moss, dried it and cooked it.
Out of the moss on the trees?
That black moss, yeah.
They dry that and...
ground it up, they cooked it.
How old are you now, Mr. Stahl?
85.
85.
Last April.
And by the way, we're doing this recording on the 24th of December, 1961. Mr. Stahl is staying with some folks at Charlie Weed. You kind of commute back and forth between there and Eureka or Kalispell
and
Cranbrook. You're up here this Christmas spending it with Jimmy, aren't you? When did you come up, Mr. Stahl?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. I hope you'll be with us for quite a few days.
Yeah.
Well, this is the end of the recording, and thank you very much, Mr. Stahl, and a Merry Christmas to you. And thank you very much for this information. Mr. Stahl, although we decided to end our recording, I believe you have something else that's very, very interesting. You helped the mounted police when you were up in northern Alberta, or north of the Peace
River.
Yeah, would you mind telling us about that?
Well, I was trapping up in the white mud that winter in there. It was about a couple hours before dark. I had a cabin at a canvas door on there, and just before dark, a colored man come in, opened it up, and says hello. He had a hat on there, the inner tube valve stuck in the top of that, and he took that off. He says, I killed 16 men in the fight law with that. He says the blood a foot thick. And then he walked down a couple of 100 yards and coyote, they beat hell and come back. He killed two more men there. He stayed overnight with me there, and he said he's going up White Law City, he says, that way north. He said there's a woman carrying mail, and he went across the creek and cut a lot of shavings and wood so she'd build a fire. You just imagine that. She had warm. He said, I went across and built a cabin over there. He said, it's just like California if I lived just across the creek, he says. And then he had a fireplace. They stayed overnight in there, and they had a glove. He poked in the fire, then he poked it down the back of his neck in there. Then he had the felt shoes. He had the Boy Scout knife. He took them off, and he jabbed in the soles for them about half the night. And the critters were howling. I says, you go up there, and I said, the timber will eat you up. And he says, that's the rabbit singing over the radio. And he stayed overnight there. In the morning there, he took a little grub in there, and I told him, you take this trail out that way, and save you 50 miles. Well, I took him out to settlement. He knew the direction. He went down about 4 or 5 miles, stayed all night outdoors out there. An old cabin, the roof had fell in, and used all his matching, building fires for the rabbits, keeping them from freezing. I went out and see the mounted police out there, and he swore me in, give me a warrant to arrest him for a vag, and said I'd have to take somebody with me. I couldn't go alone. And I took another trapper up there with me there, and it was 50 below zero when they left town there. And then when they're up there, he was 5 days ahead of us when I got back up there, and we took his track there, and he went about 4 or 5, come back and took north on the trail, and went 2 or 3 miles. He made a big circle, come back the trail again, and he built one fire that night in there. And we followed him up there in the trail. He took off in there, and there was a lot of moose lick in there that never froze. It boiled out the water, and the moose trails in there. The snow was so deep, we used snowshoes, and he took so long, we tracked him for 7 days in there, and laid out every night at the rabbit robe bed in there, and we used to build a big fire before dark and let it die down, then put boughs and sleep on there overnight in there. And 2 timber wolves followed him all the time. We tracked him in there, and after 7 days, it snowed, and I think I no man alive. He got a little piece of canvas, took in there. I think he laid down now and froze. If he ever laid down, he'd freeze to death. He must, all them 7 days, we tracked him in there. He couldn't have slept at all. He must have had nothing to eat either. There was no fire. And I come back out and see the Mountie in there, and he said he'd mark him off dead in there anyway. And I stayed out for 2 weeks before I come back up again. And I got that first cabin in there, and the 2 timber wolf tracks right outside it. I got in there about 2 o'clock in the night. And traveled up there lots of nights up there far north to get bright as day moonlight in there. And I had to dig out about 1.5 foot the floor standing in the cabin, and I see a couple of foot stuck out a door under the canvas, and I look in there, and he come back down there and froze harder than a rock. He laid in there just like he'd frozen, laid him in there. His feet on there and his shoulders on the ground, and one arm stuck up like that, froze harder than rock. And I lit a match and pulled on his arm. I see it froze harder than hell, and I looked in the cabin, and he burned everything up in there. The bed was all burned up, and the grub was gone, no wood, and I couldn't even find an axe. I had to walk all that night back to another cabin there.
Did you bury him or take him out?
I took him out. 3 dogs toboggan, and took him out to settlement at the inquest. He died of malnutrition. He weighed about 180 pounds. I don't think he'd weigh 120 there. Same winter, the white man froze to death there. Him and his wife went up to a sawmill up there and got stuck in the road. He went out for help, and she stayed in the car all night, running off and on. And in the morning, he didn't show up, and she cut her sleeves off her sweater and put it over her feet and started out. And about 1/4 mile along the trail out there, he started a little fire, and he froze there.
This would be close to White Law?
What is that is it? Fairview.
Fairview.
Yeah.
That would be northern Alberta?
In the Peace River country.
Oh, in the Peace.
About 70 miles west of Peace River crossing.
And that was where, in the same general area where the Negro froze to death. Too.
Yeah, north of there, about 50, 60 miles.
This is the end of the recording. We regret very much that this is now a voice from the past. Arthur Stahl, who was born on April the 26th, 1876, at Jackson, Michigan, USA, passed away August the 2nd here in Cranbrook at the St. Eugene Hospital. The funeral was held on August the 6th, 1962. Interment was in the West Lawn Cemetery, Reverend A. Henderson officiating. This frontiersman, who worked on railway construction in Montana in the early days when the steel was being pushed west, who freighted into Fort Steele in the 90s, and who also ranched and trapped north of the Peace River, and who also enlisted in the Canadian Army and fought throughout the war of 1914-1918, made a large contribution to the development of our western country. His story about the Negro being frozen to death in the north is quite true. It was featured in some of our national magazines some time ago. And one version of the story is that this Negro was on his way from the Yukon to Edmonton over the old trail of 1898. This is the end of the recording.